Hey everyone, Genome here, coming to you with the next episode in my Marvel Strike Force Beginners Review series. Basically, this series of videos is really aimed at the newer free-to-play player especially, but really anyone who is just getting started and might be a little confused with, the breakdown of characters or what's available for your resource buck, right? So we're talking about, of course, in-game resources, not costing bucks, and one of those actually is the War Store, and the War Store is one of the most important stores actually to get characters from in the game. One thing to note about the War Store is its currency is very precious. So unless your alliance is doing well at war and all that, or at least participating, this currency is very hard to come by. With all that being said, you need to be very careful what you spend it on. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you a list of characters that I think that you should be spending your war credits on and which ones to avoid. So stay tuned. Alright, you see before you basically everyone here who is favorited, from Ravager Bruiser all the way to Mr. Sinister, these are War Store characters. Of special note, Minerva just got moved to the War Store. I have yet to see her since it happened, supposedly, but apparently she's there. So I can definitely include her in this list now. So I'm not going to go over every character here. That's beyond the purview of this. But I'm going to hazard to say that until you've established yourself and your roster fairly well, these are the only characters you should even bother with. And I'm actually only going to give you 4 names here, believe it or not. Now, this is not to say there's not some use for the other ones. It's just either these characters are available through other means, they're low priority, or they just don't help you enough in the early go. There's one, well, possibly 2 notable exceptions here, but I'll get to that. So, who are you going to spend your war currency on, and what order should you do it? This is also important. Not all characters are created equal. Not all characters will help you as much in the early game. So let's talk about who you should go first with, and that's going to be Sif. I believe Sif should be your very first war farm, and I would dump every bit of credits you could into her whenever she pops up. She's that important. It's not that she's that important, and not that the Asgardians are all that important, even though they used to be a pretty top tier war team. They're not anymore, but still pretty good on defense. But she helps unlock Black Bolt, and through Black Bolt, also Ebony Maw. So basically 2 of the top legendaries in the game at the moment are basically gotten with Sif. So, of course, you also need to get other characters, all the other 4 characters, by the way. Not always easy, but I would say the sooner you can start farming Sif, the absolute better. And, the only shame is she's really not that good for any content. Especially outside of a full Asgardians team, she's really a poor tank, but you gotta do what you gotta do, and I would recommend Sif as your first farm. For second, I'm going to say probably Carnage. I was kind of late to the party on Carnage, and I still don't have Anti-Venom, so while I am working on my symbiotes now, slowly, it is what it is now, and Carnage is one of the best characters in the game on the symbiotes. Once again, this character will not take you very far as a standalone character. In fact, he's pretty horrible without the other symbiotes, but if you can pair him up, even with just Venom, they make a pretty decent duo in a lot of different game modes, and the funny thing is Carnage was an awful character for the longest time until they started introducing more symbiotes, specifically Symbiote Spider-Man. The trio of him, Carnage, and then Venom, but now Anti-Venom and Scream has kind of reinvented the genre, if you will, of symbiotes and made him an indispensable character. I definitely don't put him on the pedestal like where I have Sif as being the top priority because he doesn't really unlock anything, but there's no denying the sheer power of the symbiote team themselves. So yeah, Carnage is going to be my second pick. And believe it or not, that is all of the absolutely vital ones for now. So spare the pitchforks and torches, there's more coming here, but those are the 2 characters that I think are super important for early game players to start farming up right away. Get in on symbiotes as early as you can. They'll help you steamroll a lot of content that's otherwise almost impossible. And of course, getting the Asgardians is a path to 2 of the best legendaries in the game. So those 2, I think, are where you should be dumping just about all of your War Store currency. Now after that, it gets a little more situational, But these next two characters I'm going to show you are absolutely necessary for mid and late game. So it's not too early to build these two. Just I want you to be very careful with how you're spending your war currency. You know, focus, 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 I always say, which I didn't do my first year and a half in the game. So it's costing me. I'm just now catching back up after like 800 days. But you can get far behind pretty quick. And more characters getting released. So you got to be very cognizant of where your resources go. So I would say the next in order of importance for you to farm up is Minerva. Minerva is basically the queen of DD2. She does all right in lots of different game modes. I find her indispensable in raids at lower end game rating where I'm at, like U7, 7.1, and 7.2. She's still on every team that I have that I can put her on, just because of her passive is so strong and her special is extremely strong. I don't usually have to use her ultimate too much because of the Thanos Black Bolt combo I showed you in an earlier video, a couple videos back. But what makes her the queen of DD2, by the way, in case you didn't know, is her ultimate. But that I've done a specialized video on her a while back, so I won't go into it too much. But I think she should be your third farm. Now, once you get her opened, don't fret too much about getting her to high stars, like red or yellow. I mean, she works just fine at 3, 4, 5 stars because she's a kit-based character completely. That's why you don't see me leveling her up too much. I would like to put some more gear and time into her, and stars, of course, but you know, I don't have any more red stars on her. It's not a big deal. It only really affects her passive is really what it helps, and plus it helps keep her alive because she's pretty squishy. So I think she should be your number 3. And as far as like your next one, Mr. Sinister is an exceptionally good character, but he's one of the characters I do not recommend that new players work on, because while he's an amazing character, especially on the Marauders team, right, and a pretty good standalone character later on for endgame stuff, he takes an enormous amount of gear investment to make work properly. I mean, at tier 14 where I have him now, he doesn't have very good reds. Only got 4 reds on him, and 3 ISOs. He's 91k. It's not great. It's okay. Don't get me wrong. You can make some great clones and all that, but it's not where you need him to be. He needs to be up in like the 120 range, so he makes a nice beefy clone. And until you get him up to even these levels, he's not that good a character. I'm telling you right now, that clone is really squishy. It dies in like 2 hits from regular characters, and he won't be doing a whole lot for your team, especially if he's off the Marauders team. So while he's a very, very, very strong character, and I highly recommend you go for him, I think that's definitely the first 2 in this list for sure should come before him, and probably Minerva as well, because I think they will do much more for you as a whole than he will as a standalone, right? And the Marauders are not that easy to collect, especially with Emma. Emma, getting her up to high stars is not an easy thing right now. And that may change later, but who knows? So I don't want to speculate too much. So really, those are the only 4 characters I would say are absolutely essential in the War Store. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about some honorable mentions. These are characters I think you should go for when the credits open up, right? When basically you've spent what you needed to on the really important characters. First one I'm going to talk about is Pyro. Pyro is your pathway to helping, you don't have to use him though, to unlocking Magneto, and he's indispensable on the Brotherhood team. Exceptionally good character, but he's not used anywhere outside of his team, and Brotherhood isn't really used for anything right now other than war offense, and I don't think it's good that you just have a team that does one thing in this game to at least dump a lot of resources in, right? So yeah, Pyro is for later down the road character. I love the character, I love his kit, but he's not something that anyone new should be worried about getting right away, and because Magneto's not even that good anymore. He's just not necessary for anything. You know, he has some niche uses, but he's definitely not top tier anymore, and definitely not really used in a lot of game modes, right? Alright, quick addendum to what I've been shooting. I shot this entire video and realized that I forgot to include X23 for whatever reason. Sorry, I'm not used to it yet. But X23 is kind of a secondary character in my opinion, as far as being vital for new players to farm. She's exceptionally good in player versus player. Not really a huge concern right now. And the X-Force team itself is very good in war offense. But those alone aren't real good reasons just to want to farm her up. The other good reason, though, is actually, of course, she does help unlock a legendary in Doc Ock. But Doc Ock is not exactly an easy-to-farm legendary for newer players, and while he is pretty versatile, actually, as far as legendaries goes, I think you'll be better served with both Black Bullet, Ebony Maw in the earlier game, right? So yeah, X23 is probably like, I'd say, the 5th or 6th character to farm. Actually, you might put I would put her above Pyro, so probably like the 5th farm or so in the War Store. So she's a really good character. It's just that I recommend, the previous 4 before her, and that's it. All right, and finally, I'm going to talk about Graviton. Graviton is, to me, highly recommended because I still recommend the AIM team highly. In fact, I just ran through some of the Doom 2nd campaigns. Keep in mind, I'm a free-to-play player on both my accounts, this one and my small one. And it's amazing what a low-tier and a low-geared AIM team can do. The fights will take forever. Don't get me wrong. These are not good war teams because AIM works best with no timer. But basically, the only one doing damage on an AIM team, depending on your setup, is going to be Graviton. So getting him unlocked is very important. Plus, he has a big wall of text for AIM minions. So the AIM team just really doesn't work without him. And the AIM team can just get you through some content you couldn't otherwise get through at low gear levels. It's a lot better than like leveling things like Wakandans, and garbage like that. When AIM can serve you well, or at least decently, like things like War, not really raids because it's too short. War, Blitz, and campaign nodes is really where they're at. But you don't have to gear them too highly either, because this is what I ran through Doom 2 with the first 2 or the first 3 nodes in Doom 2 with AIM. This is the AIM team I did it with, right? Actually, I use Shuri in AIM Monstrosity's play, so it's just all support here. And Shuri, of course, helping to heal and put defense up. So they're really good for those kind of things. But he's definitely not needed for anything else. So unless you're really thinking ahead to the campaign missions and haven't started working on AIM early, he's definitely an afterthought, but he is something to think about. So yeah, long story short, if you want to get down to it, the 4 I recommend you spend the money on, war currency that is, in order of importance are: number 1, Sif; 2, Carnage; 3, Minerva; and 4, Mr. Sinister. I think that gives you the most bang for your buck. You don't waste time. Now, I was going to also mention some other things. Cable has a node, but if you're really getting desperate to wanting Doc Ock, that is another option, is to start double farming him. I actually did it with Nobu a little bit because the Phoenix event was coming up when I got her last, or however long ago it was, and I actually used some War Store credits on Nobu. At the time, there wasn't as many good war characters in there, though. Keep that in mind. But that is an option too. But he also has a node, so just keep that in mind. Like I said, no one else here is worthy or required at all for War Store currency, so please don't dump things in a Hydra Sniper or Shield Operative or Nobu or really Cable. This top row is really what you want to worry about, and Sif, but Sif being the most important. And once you get her going, now this also depends too, where you stop on her real fast, is how many stars you're wanting on your legendaries. I have this thing about getting them all to 7 stars. That's just me. Most legendaries work just fine at 5 stars, so you may want to get Sif just to 5 stars and then start working on some of these other characters. That's an option too. So, and if your alliance is doing swimmingly in raids in war, you might have quite a bit of currency, and then you can afford to spread around a bit, but be very careful about that because it takes a lot of shards, I'm telling you, and a lot of currency to level these guys up. So buyer beware, caveat emptor, and all that good stuff. And that's it for now. So let me know if this video was helpful for you. I plan on putting out some more beginner-friendly videos like this in the future to help people along, to give them a helping hand where I didn't have it. So anyway, thanks again for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. And until next time, this is Genome, out.